Hello fight fans and welcome to Matt's Fight Corner. I'm your host Matt Ward, here to give you the best breakdown of the biggest MMA fight of the month. And it doesn't get any bigger than this, ladies and gents, fight fans around the world, because the UFC Heavyweight Championship is up for grabs. The champion, Cain Velasquez, the newly crowned champion, Cain Velasquez, versus Antonio Bigfoot Silva, the challenger. Now this is actually a very interesting fight because it's a rematch. It's a rematch from last year, UFC 146. They were the co-main event and Velasquez absolutely smashed Silva. But now, obviously, it's a completely different kettle of fish because it's for the big one and it's the main event. Right, we all know what I do here. I'll be breaking down the strengths and weaknesses of champion versus challenger, fighter versus fighter, and then at the end of the video, I'll be giving you my personal opinion on who I believe is going to walk out the victor. So, as we start, always we start in the red corner. We start with the champion. Now, if you remember correctly, in episode 1, the very first episode I did was Velasquez versus Dos Santos, and I thoroughly broke down Cain's strengths in that video. But I'll just go through them again quickly so it's fresh in everyone's mind. Cain Velasquez is one of the best fighters in the heavyweight division. He's one of the best fighters that the heavyweight division has seen in years. What I mean by that is every great fighter is well-rounded, and Cain is one of them, which means his striking is top-notch, his wrestling is top-notch, his jiu-jitsu, okay, well let me explain that a bit more. His jiu-jitsu is not something that's been seen a lot because he's a very dominant fighter. He's never been taken down and been on the bottom to try and use his jiu-jitsu, but he trains out of American Kickboxing Academy in San Jose, which their coaching staff is one of the best in the game. So I'm sure that his jiu-jitsu game is up where it's supposed to be. His strengths really came through in his most recent fight against Junior Dos Santos, because Cain Velasquez completely and utterly dominated Dos Santos more than what anyone thought he would. Cain rocked him continuously with punches. It was very surprising that Junior Dos Santos never dropped or was never knocked out. Cain kept the pressure on because, as everyone knows, every fight fan in the world knows, that Cain Velasquez has one of the best gas tanks in all the divisions. As I mentioned in the last video, he outworks lightweights and welterweights in the gym who weigh 170, 155 pounds, whereas Cain usually weighs in at about 240 pounds. Yeah, so, but not just with the striking. As everyone knows, he dominated him with his wrestling, using big slams, control, and ground and pound as well. So it was a good mix of striking, wrestling, and ground and pound, and that's ultimately what won Cain Velasquez the fight. Like I said, just refreshing everyone's mind. I'm not going to dawdle on about Cain Velasquez. Now moving over to the challenger, Antonio Bigfoot Silva. Bigfoot he's a good fighter. I would say that he's a good fighter. His biggest strength, well, I wouldn't know too much about his biggest strength, but he does have quite a few of them. His striking is one of them. He's a pretty ferocious striker. He's not one of the most technical strikers, but don't get me wrong, when he does start putting his hands on you, you do feel him. That's what I mean when he's ferocious. When he smells the blood, when he smells that you're going to drop, that's when he starts hitting you some scary punches. He has a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. As a matter of fact, he has a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, in Judo, and if I'm not mistaken, Karate. Three black belts in 3 different disciplines, is a complete and total strength in my book, as I'm sure it's in everyone else's book. Throughout Silva's career, he has a pretty good record. He's only hold on, let me check. He's only 18-4. 18 wins, 4 losses. Of those 4 losses, he's only been knocked out 3 times. But that was against high-level competitors, the likes of Cain Velasquez and Daniel Cormier, the former Strikeforce Grand Prix heavyweight champion. Another thing, one of the biggest things about Silva is, and this came up in his previous fight, just like it came up with Cain, was when he fought Alistair Overeem. He is one of those fighters where you cannot give them an inch. And what that means is that if you've won the first 2 rounds, if it's a 3-round fight, you've won the first 2 rounds, you cannot take your foot off the gas in the 3rd round, because that's exactly what Alistair Overeem did. And as soon as he did that, as soon as Bigfoot Silva saw that Overeem had taken his foot off the gas, that's when Silva pounced and viciously knocked out Overeem. Now that's a big strength, because he's ready to kill you at any moment in the fight, and that is very, very dangerous for Cain Velasquez. Moving over to the weaknesses. Now with Cain, to tell you the truth, after the fight with Dos Santos, I can't really find a weakness in him. I really can't. I mean, the only way I see someone beating Cain Velasquez is if someone's a better wrestler than him. I mean, yeah, he could get knocked out like he did against Dos Santos, but a lot of stuff came out after the fight that Cain had a very bad knee injury. I think he had a torn ACL, and his mobility was very cut off for the fight. So that just proves when Cain's not at 100%, he's susceptible to lose. But when Cain is at 100%, like every fighter, he has a better chance of winning. But again, I can't really see anyone really beating Cain when Cain's at his best. Everyone thought Junior Dos Santos could, but then Cain proved at UFC 155 that no one can beat Cain when he is at his best. Moving over to the weakness of Antonio Bigfoot Silva. Now, his biggest weakness is that he can't withstand a dominant wrestler with very, very vicious ground and pound. The biggest example of a fighter who has these qualities that I can give you is Cain Velasquez. Because the reality is, in the first fight, I'll break down the fight as it happened. The bell rang, it started off, Silva threw a leg kick, and as soon as he threw that leg kick, Cain quickly grabbed it, took him down, and for the next 3 minutes, all he did was punch, elbow, punch, elbow. He mullered the shit out of Antonio Bigfoot Silva, and Silva couldn't do anything about it. He pretty much just laid there and took a beating. And with those vicious elbows and punches that Cain was throwing, it made this massive cut on his head. There was blood everywhere. It got to the point where the referee just had to come in and stop. But Cain had so much more left in him. And I may be a bit unfair in saying this, but in my eyes, it's a reality. It's a reality, and it will be. And this is probably the. How am I going to put this? I will never not give a fighter a chance. I will freely admit that every fighter has a chance to win. If Cain does not, well, no, let me rephrase that again. If Cain does not come in with the proper game plan and he overestimates Antonio Silva, thinking, well, I completely dominated him the first time, there's no reason why I shouldn't do it this time. If Cain comes in like that, I reckon that Bigfoot Silva is probably going to get him in big trouble by punches and knocking him out. But I personally can't see that happening with Cain Velasquez. He's just too much of a disciplined fighter. This is probably the shortest video I'm gonna have to do, so I'm gonna give my prediction right here, right now. I predict that Cain Velasquez is gonna win, probably by stoppage again. It will be a TKO, yeah. Thanks, ladies and gents, for tuning in to another episode of Matt's Fight Corner. Again, I'm sorry it took so long for me to get it out. I had some technical difficulties with the camera. I'll be with you next month for episode 7 and UFC 162, Silva versus Weidman, and I guarantee you the videos will be getting better. Thanks a lot, fight fans. I'll see you later.